when the metal door of the old storage unit rolled up. A wave of warm, dusty air hit my face. The scent of old paper, wood polish, and something faintly metallic drifted out. My daughter-in-law, Amara, stood beside me, her hand hovering near the light switch. The flickering bulb came to life, revealing rows of boxes stacked unevenly, some marked, others unlabeled. I hadn't stepped inside this place in over 20 years. My son, Marcus, had rented it just before he vanished. That was the last thing I ever knew for certain about him. Amara looked at me carefully, her expression cautious but respectful. "Mrs. Taylor, we can start from the back if you want. He kept the older boxes there." Her voice trembled slightly when she said, "he." I nodded. "Let's just see what's left." We worked in silence. Each box told a small story: old restaurant ledgers, Marcus's high school trophies, faded family photos, a few shirts that still carried the faint scent of the cologne he used to wear. For a long time, I'd hated him for what he did. The betrayal, the theft, the shame it brought our family. He'd taken everything from his father's safe, decades of savings, and disappeared without a trace. My husband, Samuel, never recovered from that night. His heart gave out 2 days later. I buried my husband and never spoke my son's name again. But now, years later, I stood here because Amara had found a letter in Marcus's things. She said it was meant for me. At first, I refused to read it. I didn't want his words to reopen wounds I'd barely learned to live with. But there was something in Amara's eyes, grief mixed with a strange hope, that made me agree to come. We worked through a few more boxes until Amara quietly called, "Ma'am, I think I found something." I turned to see her kneeling beside a wooden chest, smaller than a suitcase, locked but dusty with age. She brushed the top with her sleeve, revealing the faint carving of a name: Marcus Taylor. My breath caught. The lock was old and rusted, but Amara found a key taped under the lid of another box. It clicked open easily, like it had been waiting all this time. Inside, wrapped in a faded piece of cloth, was an old watch, the same one my husband wore every day before giving it to Marcus on his 21st birthday. Next to it lay an envelope, my name written on the front in handwriting I recognized instantly. "Do you want me to—" Amara started. "No," I said quickly. "I'll take it." She nodded, closing the chest and setting it gently aside. We finished sorting through the rest of the boxes: receipts, notebooks, an old camera, and a few bundles of cash, foreign bills I couldn't identify. But my focus stayed on that envelope. When we finally left the storage unit, the evening light was fading. We locked the door and walked back to the car in silence. On the drive back, Amara watched me from the passenger seat, her fingers fidgeting with the strap of her bag. I knew she wanted to say something, but neither of us could find the right words. When we reached the small hostel where she was staying, she paused before getting out. "Will you be okay?" she asked softly. "I don't know," I said truthfully. She gave a slow nod. "I'll wait to hear from you, Mrs. Taylor." Then she disappeared into the building, leaving me alone in the car, the letter sitting on the passenger seat beside me. I sat there for a while staring at it. The world outside had grown quiet, streetlights humming, a distant car horn echoing somewhere down the road. My hands felt heavy on the steering wheel, my throat tight. Eventually, I drove home. The sunset painted everything a soft orange and pink through my kitchen window. I made myself tea, not because I wanted it, but because I needed something to hold. The envelope lay on the table, Marcus's handwriting facing me. Mom. That was all it said on the front. No apology, no explanation, just Mom. For a long time I stared at it, my chest aching. Part of me wanted to burn it without opening it, to let the past stay buried. But my fingers moved on their own, tearing open the seal. Inside were 6 folded sheets of paper, written front and back in shaky handwriting. The date in the corner read, June 8th, 2009, 1 week before he died. My breath caught. I sat down, the kitchen light flickering above me, and began to read. Mom, I don't know how to start this. I've rewritten this letter in my head 100 times, and it never sounded right. But I'm out of time now. I know you think I stole from you and Dad, and you're right. I did. But it wasn't what you think. It was never meant to destroy us. I thought I was saving us. My eyes stung. I read on. That spring, a friend of mine, Darius Cole, came to me with a job. Said it was simple delivery work. One night, $2,000 cash. I wanted to buy my own car. I was tired of borrowing Dad's truck. I didn't ask enough questions. That was my first mistake. He went on to describe how he and Darius drove from Los Angeles towards the border, carrying a sealed package. They stopped at a gas station. The package was stolen. When Marcus confronted Darius, he finally learned what they had been carrying. 5 kilos of cocaine belonging to a cartel, worth $250,000. I froze, my hands trembling. They found us before we could run. 3 men. They said they owed them $250,000. They knew your name, Mom. They knew where you worked, what Dad looked like. They said if we called the cops, they'd kill everyone we loved. I believed them. He explained how, terrified and desperate, he broke into the restaurant that night, opened his father's safe, and took every dollar inside. I told myself it was to protect you, that if I didn't pay them, they'd come for all of us. But when Dad found the empty safe, he thought I'd betrayed him. He had the heart attack that killed him. I killed him, Mom. I know that. Tears blurred the words. My chest tightened so hard I could barely breathe. He wrote about fleeing to Mexico, too afraid to return, haunted by what he'd done. How he'd found work in construction, saved every cent, and started putting money away 1 bundle at a time, trying to make it right someday. The words grew shakier toward the end. I couldn't face you. Every time I thought about calling, I saw Dad on the floor. I wanted to come home, but I didn't deserve to. I've sent money when I could. Anonymous, so you wouldn't know. It was always me. Every hospital bill, every rent payment that got mysteriously covered, that was me. I never stopped watching over you. By the time I reached the last line, tears streamed freely down my face. I'm sorry, Mom. I stole your peace. I took your husband, but I never stopped loving you. The money in the box is yours. It was always yours. The letter slipped from my hands. The kitchen blurred. For 20 years, I'd believed my son was a thief and a coward. Now I was holding proof that he'd spent his life trying to atone for it. I pressed my hands against the table, trying to steady my breathing. Outside, the streetlight flickered. That's when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Amara. Did you read it? I stared at the screen, my fingers trembling. Yes. 3 dots appeared. Then, can we talk tomorrow? I looked at the letter, at Marcus's words, and at the watch on the table beside it. I typed back, yes. But inside, a single question burned louder than any other. Could I ever forgive him? The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. My body felt heavy, as if the weight of all those years had finally found its place on my chest. The house was silent. Too silent. I stood in the kitchen, watching the first light spill across the tiles that Malik once fixed himself. The coffee maker sputtered, like it hadn't been used in forever. Maybe it hadn't. I opened the small wooden drawer by the stove. Inside was a folded napkin stained with old grease and faded ink. Malik's handwriting stared back at me. The same looping, hurried scrawl that once filled our grocery lists and love notes. If you ever find this, I'm sorry for what I took from you. Look behind the fence posts near the lemon tree. My hands trembled. That tree was still there, gnarled, half dead, yet stubbornly alive. It had survived storms and neglect, just like me. I walked outside, barefoot, the morning dew cold against my skin. Birds were starting to sing, their voices sharp and sweet in the quiet. The fence post leaned slightly, weathered and chipped. I crouched beside it, brushing away dirt until my fingers hit metal. A small tin box. Inside, wrapped in plastic, was a stack of papers, old photographs, and a folded letter addressed to me. I never meant to hurt you, Amina. I thought leaving was the only way to fix what I'd broken. But every year, every birthday, I sent help through people who never told you it was me. You deserved better than the man I used to be. I pressed the letter against my chest. The ink had bled with time, but I could still see his sorrow in every line. I remembered the anonymous donations that appeared when my daughter needed surgery or when I almost lost the house. I had always thought some kind stranger had helped, but it had been him, Malik, the man who vanished. Tears burned my eyes. Oh, those nights I cursed his name, and he was somewhere out there, quietly trying to make it right. I went back inside, sat on the floor with the box beside me, and began unfolding the papers one by one. They were receipts, money transfers, hospital donations, rent payments, all traced back to the same anonymous fund. There was even a faded photo of me and my daughter, Lila, standing outside our old apartment. The date on the back was written in his hand. The day I realized what I lost. I don't know how long I sat there. Time melted away. Every piece of paper felt like another heartbeat I'd missed. Then, as the clock hit noon, Lila called. Her voice was soft, cautious. "Mom, I saw the pictures you posted yesterday. Were you at the old house?" I hesitated, wiping my tears. "Yeah, I found something." She was silent for a moment before saying, "About Dad?" Her tone told me she knew more than I thought. "Lila," I asked slowly, "how much do you know?" She sighed. "I didn't want to tell you, but a few years ago, when I was in college, a man used to send me small envelopes with money for books. No name, just a note that said, 'For your mother's peace.' I always thought it was a charity." My heart clenched. He had been helping her too, still protecting us from afar. "Sweetheart," I whispered, "it was your father." There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing through the phone. Then a sob broke through. "Mom, all this time?" "All this time," I said. We both cried silently. Not out of anger anymore, but something softer. Regret, forgiveness, maybe love in its most painful form. Later that evening, I went to the attic to look for more traces of him. I found an old shoebox tucked behind the insulation, filled with photographs from when we were young. Our wedding, our first apartment, baby Lila wrapped in a yellow blanket. Each photo felt like a whisper from a life that could have been. Then, something fell from the box. A key. Small, rusted, tied to a faded red ribbon. Attached was a tiny tag that read, "For when you're ready." Ready for what? I looked around the attic, the shadows, long and soft. Nothing up here looked like it had a lock. I searched the rest of the house, drawers, closets, under floorboards, until I reached the old study Malik used to use. There, behind a loose panel near the bookshelf, I found a small wooden chest with the same ribbon tied around its handle. My pulse quickened. I used the key. It clicked softly like a sigh of release. Inside were old journals. His handwriting filled every page. Years of thoughts, apologies, attempts at becoming better. But something else caught my eye. An envelope labeled, "To be delivered if anything happens to me." My breath caught. The postmark was from 3 months ago. He'd known it. Before I could open it, Lila's car pulled up outside. I saw her through the window, older now, but with the same cautious eyes Malik used to have. She stepped out, holding a bouquet of lilies. "Mom," she said when I opened the door, "I think it's time we read it together." I nodded. My fingers shook as I broke the seal. Inside, written in the same trembling hand, were the words that changed everything. "If you're reading this, I didn't make it. But before you hate me again, I need you to know the truth wasn't what you think. I never left you for another life. I left to protect you from the one I was running from." The air left my lungs. Lila stared at me, confused. "What does that mean?" But I didn't have an answer yet. My heart pounded, my throat tight, because for the first time in 20 years, I realized maybe the story I told myself for years was never the full truth. And if Malik had been protecting us, then from whom? That night, as the wind rattled the windows, I couldn't sleep. The letter lay open beside me, and for the first time in 20 years, I was afraid, not of the past, but of what I was about to uncover next. That night, sleep refused to come. The house felt colder, heavier, like the walls themselves were holding their breath, waiting for me to understand something I wasn't ready to face. I sat on the couch with Malik's final letter spread across my lap. The words burned into my mind. He left to protect you from the one I was running from. Who could he possibly mean? For years, I'd believed he left because of guilt, because he couldn't bear what he did to us. But now it felt like the story had a missing piece, one big enough to change everything. Layla sat across from me, her knees pulled to her chest. The light from the lamp cast shadows over her face, soft but haunted. "Mom," she said quietly, "do you think he was in danger?" I looked at her, at the fear in her eyes, and realized I didn't want her to carry the same uncertainty I had for decades. "I don't know," I whispered, "but we're going to find out." The next morning, we went through every page of Malik's journals. His handwriting shifted over the years, confident at first, then shakier, more desperate. He wrote about debts, about men who came looking for him, about trying to earn clean money again. And one name appeared again and again: Elias. Layla pointed at it. "Who's Elias?" The name made my stomach twist. It sounded familiar, not from my life, but from his, before me. I flipped through another journal, then another. One entry stopped me cold. "Elias gave me the money for the construction deal, but I should have never taken it. When the job went bad, he came after me. I thought if I left, he'd stop looking. I was wrong." My heart pounded. Malik hadn't left because of betrayal or cowardice. He'd left because someone dangerous was after him. Layla looked pale. "Do you think he's still alive?" I shook my head slowly. "No, honey, but someone might be." We decided to visit Malik's old friend, Pastor Raymond, the only person who stayed in touch after Malik disappeared. He lived 2 towns over, in a small church with white painted walls and a broken bell that never rang anymore. When he saw me, his face softened with something between surprise and guilt. "Amina," he said quietly, "I was wondering when you'd come." He led us inside. The church smelled of wax and old paper. Layla sat in one of the pews, while I followed Raymond into his small office. I laid the letter on his desk. "Did you know about this?" He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Malik told me bits and pieces, said he'd gotten involved with the wrong kind of people years ago. When he tried to back out, they threatened him. He came to me the night before he disappeared." My breath caught. "So it's true. He didn't just walk away." Raymond nodded slowly. "He left to keep you and Layla safe. He told me if anything ever happened to him, there was a woman I should contact, someone who might explain the rest." "A woman?" He hesitated. "Her name was Naomi Price. She used to work with the same company Malik was tied to. I haven't heard from her in years, but last I knew, she was living in Baltimore." The name felt like a spark in my chest, the first real lead after decades of emptiness. When we got back to the car, Layla was quiet. She stared out the window as the afternoon light flickered through the trees. "Mom," she said, "do you think this woman knows what happened? We have to find her." I nodded. "We will." We drove home in silence, the hum of the engine mixing with the sound of our thoughts. The closer we got, the more I noticed small things I hadn't before. The mailbox slightly tilted, a set of footprints in the dirt by the gate that didn't belong to us. I tried to shake it off, but that night, when I went to close the curtains, I saw a car parked across the street. Dark, still, its headlights off, engine running. "Layla," I whispered, "stay upstairs." I watched the car for a long time, my heart hammering. After a few minutes, it drove away, but the unease stayed with me long after the sound of the engine faded. The next day, I called a private investigator, an old acquaintance named Harper, who owed me a favor. I gave him the details: Elias, Naomi Price, and Malik's letters. He called back 3 hours later. "You're not going to like this, Amina. Elias Reed died 15 years ago. Car crash in Atlanta. But Naomi Price, she's alive. Works under a different name now. Naomi Clark. You want her address?" "Yes," I said, without hesitation. He paused. "Amina, one more thing. You asked me to check on the property records for your old house, right?" "Yeah. Why?" "It was bought last year. Cash deal. Guess whose name was on the paperwork?" I frowned. "Who?" "Naomi Clark." The phone slipped from my hand, my breath caught in my throat. Layla rushed over, her face pale. "Mom, what's wrong?" I managed to whisper, "She bought our old house." Layla's eyes widened. "Why would she do that?" I didn't know, but something deep inside me told me it wasn't random. That night, I sat with Malik's last journal again, reading it line by line. Near the end, a note caught my attention. "If they ever find me, the house isn't safe. The truth is buried where it all began." I felt my skin prickle. The house, our old house, the same one Naomi now owns. "Layla," I said, standing abruptly, "pack a bag. We're driving to the city tomorrow." She blinked. "To Baltimore?" "No," I said quietly. "To where it all started." As I walked down the hallway, something shifted inside me, the fear turning to resolute. For years, I lived as a widow of betrayal, but now I was starting to think I was the widow of a man who died saving us. And whoever Naomi Clark really was, she might hold the final piece of the truth. At dawn, as I loaded the car, I noticed a single white envelope tucked under the windshield wiper. My name was written on it in neat, unfamiliar handwriting. Inside was just one line: "Stop digging, Amina. You won't survive what you find next. The morning light fell cold and gray across the driveway as I stared at the white envelope in my hand. That message, "Stop digging, Amina," played over and over in my mind. My fingers trembled, but I tore the note in half and let the pieces fall to the ground. Whoever sent it underestimated how far I'd already come. Layla stepped outside, her backpack slung over her shoulder. "Mom, you're shaking. What happened?" I forced a calm breath. "Nothing, sweetheart. Let's go." We drove for hours, the road winding through stretches of dry countryside until the old neighborhoods started to appear, the ones I used to know before life split in two. When we reached our former house, I barely recognized it. Naomi had changed everything. The once white walls were now deep gray. A tall iron fence surrounded the property, and security cameras blinked like watchful eyes. Layla whispered, "She really lives here?" I nodded, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. "She bought our memories," I said bitterly. We parked across the street and waited. After a few minutes, the front door opened. A woman in her 50s stepped out, slim, elegant, with short silver hair and skin the color of caramel. She wore a tailored coat and dark sunglasses, even though the sky was cloudy. Naomi Clark. She looked nothing like the woman I had imagined. No villain's face, no harshness, just calm control. That made her even scarier. Layla reached for my arm. "Mom, please don't go over there." But I was already opening the car door. Naomi turned as I crossed the street. For a moment, her face didn't change, but then I saw a flicker of recognition in her eyes. "Amina, I was wondering when you'd find me." My pulse thundered in my ears. "You bought my house." She tilted her head. "Your husband asked me to?" That stopped me cold. "Excuse me?" Naomi looked toward the house. "Maybe we shouldn't talk here. Come inside." I hesitated, every instinct screaming no, but I needed answers. Layla stayed in the car, watching closely as I followed Naomi up the steps. Inside, the house looked preserved, like she had tried to freeze time. The same staircase, the same kitchen tiles, even the same crack in the living room wall Malik used to say he'd fix one day. I couldn't breathe. Naomi gestured toward the sofa. "He told me you might come one day after you found the letter." I sank down slowly. "So you knew he was alive all those years?" Naomi sat opposite me. "Alive, yes. Safe, no." I stared at her. "He said you worked with him." Naomi nodded. "We were both in the same construction firm in DC. Malik got tangled in something he didn't understand. The man funding the project, Elias Reed, wasn't a businessman. He was laundering money through it. Malik found out too late. So he tried to leave?" "Yes, but Elias wasn't the kind of man who let people walk away. Malik came to me for help. I had connections, I got him out, sent him to another city. He promised he'd keep a low profile, send money when he could." I clenched my fists. "And you never thought to tell me? To tell his wife?" Naomi's face softened. "He begged me not to. He said if you knew, you'd come looking, and that would get you both killed. He didn't want Layla growing up in fear." Tears burned behind my eyes. All those nights I'd cursed him, all those years of anger. He'd been trying to keep us alive. Naomi stood, walked to a small safe in the corner of the room and opened it. Inside was a folder, old, frayed at the edges. She handed it to me. "He wrote these for you. I was supposed to deliver them if something happened to him." My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were letters, dozens of them, each one dated, spanning years. The first was from 1999. "Amina, I watch from far away. Layla looks like you. Her laugh sounds like sunlight. I can't come home yet. Elias's men are still watching. I promise one day, when it's safe, I'll explain everything." The next letter was from 2003. "The money I send isn't guilt, it's protection. I know you think I ran from you, but I ran for you. When this is over, I'll come back. Please tell Layla I love her." My tears fell freely now, soaking the pages. Years of silence, explained in ink.
Then I saw the last letter from just months before his death. Naomi says I should stop looking into the old accounts, but I can't. Something about Elias's death doesn't add up. If I disappear, tell Amina to look under the roots. She'll understand. I looked up sharply. What does that mean, under the roots? Naomi frowned. I don't know. That letter came the week before he was found dead. The words found dead hit me like a wave. You mean he didn't just die? Naomi hesitated. The police said it was an accident, but Malik had no reason to be near that bridge. He was meeting someone. My stomach turned. Who? Before she could answer, there was a sharp sound, glass breaking in the next room. Naomi jumped to her feet. Stay here. But I followed her. The front window was shattered. The iron gate outside swung open. Layla was gone. My heart stopped. I ran outside, shouting her name into the cold wind. Layla! The street was empty, except for a black sedan turning the corner, speeding away. Naomi came up beside me, her face pale. They found you, she whispered. Elias's men. I think they never stopped watching. I felt my knees weaken, rage and terror twisting inside me. Then we're going to get her back, I said, my voice shaking but hard. Naomi looked at me, not as an accomplice, but as a woman who understood loss. Then you'll need to know what Malik discovered before he died. Come with me. As I followed Naomi to the back of the house, she opened a hidden door beneath the staircase. A cold draft hit my face. Inside was a dark cellar. She switched on a small light, revealing stacks of boxes marked ER Construction and a single black binder labeled Root Ledger. Naomi turned to me. This is what he died for. The small bulb flickered as Naomi pulled the chain. Dust floated through the cold air like ghosts that had been waiting to be seen. Dozens of boxes were stacked against the cement walls, each stamped ER Construction LLC. She lifted the black binder from the top and set it on an old wooden table. The spine cracked as she opened it. Inside were spreadsheets, photos, receipts, all neatly labeled in Malik's handwriting. Root Ledger, I whispered, tracing the words on the first page. Naomi nodded. He started calling it that after Elias Reed died. He said everything rotten in that company grew from one set of roots, this ledger. I flipped through the pages. Every sheet matched payments I remembered from Malik's early contracts, except these had second amounts, hidden transfers to shell accounts. Naomi tapped a photo tucked into one page. Malik standing beside two men in suits outside a half-built shopping complex. One of the men was Elias Reed. The other I didn't recognize. That's Calvin Bryce, she said quietly. Elias's right-hand man. After Elias died, Calvin took over the money flow. He's still alive. The name sent a chill down my spine. He's the one who took Layla. Naomi didn't deny it. Malik once told me that if anything happened to him, Bryce would try to tie up loose ends. That means you and the files. I closed the binder. Then we go to the police. Naomi shook her head. Bryce owns half the precinct. If we move wrong, Layla could disappear for good. I swallowed hard. My mind raced. Malik's letter, "Look under the roots," echoed in my head. Maybe he'd meant this ledger. Maybe there was something else hidden. Why did Malik keep this instead of destroying it? I asked. Because it proved everything. Elias's deals, the bribes, the money meant for community housing that vanished. Malik was ready to expose it. That's why they killed him. Killed. The word tore through me. He didn't fall off that bridge, I said slowly. Naomi's silence was the answer. For a long moment, we both just stood there. The hum of the bulb was the only sound. Then Naomi whispered, "There's one more thing." She reached into a smaller box and pulled out a phone, old, scratched, the kind from a decade ago. He gave this to me for safekeeping, said it had a recording. She powered it on. The screen glowed faintly. She scrolled until she found an audio file named Roots Final. My hands shook as she pressed play. Malek's voice filled the room, older, hoarser, but unmistakably his. If you're hearing this, it means I couldn't finish it. Elias is dead, but Bryce took control. They're still moving money through new names. I've copied the accounts into the root ledger. Naomi knows where. Amina, if they ever reach you, don't run. Use the truth. That's the only thing they can't bury. The recording ended with a crash in the background, a door slamming, Malek shouting something muffled, then static. I covered my mouth, fighting back sobs. He knew they were coming. Naomi put a hand on my shoulder. And he still wanted you to find the truth. Before I could reply, her phone buzzed. A message, unknown number. We have your daughter. No police. 10 p.m., Warehouse 19. The blood drained from my face. Naomi read it over my shoulder. She said, Warehouse 19 is near the river. Old shipping docks. That's where they killed Elias. I grabbed the binder. Then that's where we end this. She looked at me, measuring my resolve. Amina, you're walking into the same trap Malek did. Maybe, I said, sliding the binder into my bag. But this time I'm not walking out empty-handed. The drive to the docks felt endless. The sky turned the color of bruised steel as night crept in. Every sound, every passing car, every rustle of wind made my nerves jolt. Naomi parked a block away and checked the pistol tucked beneath her jacket. Just in case, she murmured. I'd never seen her carry a weapon before. You trust me? She asked. I don't have anyone else, I said simply. We moved through the shadows toward Warehouse 19. Its windows were broken, its walls tagged with graffiti. A single light glowed inside through the cracks in the metal door. I pushed it open. Layla was there, tied to a chair, a gag over her mouth. A man stood beside her, tall, suited, gray hair slicked back. Calvin Bryce. Well, he said, smiling thinly, the famous Amina Karim. Malek's goose still haunts us, doesn't he? I felt rage boil inside me. Where's the rest of your men? He shrugged. Close enough. This doesn't need to get ugly. You have something that belongs to me. I held up my bag. You mean this? His smile widened. Hand it over and you both walk away. Naomi stepped forward, gun drawn. That's not happening. Bryce didn't even flinch. You think I didn't expect her? You were on my payroll once, Naomi. Naomi's hand trembled. That was a long time ago. Not long enough, he said and snapped his fingers. 2 armed men appeared from the shadows. Everything happened in seconds. Naomi fired 1 shot, clean, hitting a pipe above them. Steam burst out, filling the room. I ran to Lila, cutting the ropes with a broken shard of metal. She coughed, terrified, but alive. Run, I shouted. She bolted toward the door. I grabbed the binder and followed, Naomi covering us. The gunfire echoed through the warehouse. My heart pounded so hard I could hear nothing else. We made it outside, into the cold night. Layla stumbled into my arms, sobbing. Naomi limped behind us, blood seeping through her sleeve. Car's that way, she gasped. We ran. The moment we reached it, Naomi tossed me the keys. Drive! I floored the gas. The tires screamed against the cracked pavement. In the rearview mirror, I saw shadows chasing, lights flashing, then fading. For a moment, silence. Just our breathing, the hum of the road, Layla clutching my hand so tight it hurt. Naomi pressed her arm against the wound. They won't stop, not until that ledger's gone. I said coldly, they'll stop once everyone sees it. She looked at me. You mean? I'm releasing it. Every document, every name. Malek wanted the truth out. That's how we finish it. Naomi nodded faintly, her eyes glazing from pain. Then promise me something, she said. What? If I don't make it, take that ledger to the media. Don't trust anyone else." "Don't talk like that," I said, but she just smiled weakly. "He'd be proud of you, Amina. You kept fighting." We drove through the night toward the city lights. My mind raced with everything ahead. Layla, safe beside me, the ledger on the seat, Naomi bleeding in the back. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, only that Malik's truth had finally come to light, and someone was going to pay for burying it. As dawn broke, I saw the first rays of sun touch the skyline. For the first time in years, I didn't feel afraid, because now I had proof, and proof was power. When I pulled into the hospital parking lot, I thought it was over. Layla was safe, Naomi alive. But as I stepped out of the car, my phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. "You shouldn't have opened the roots. We're not done yet." I looked up and saw a man in a dark coat watching me from across the street.
The man in the dark coat didn't move. He just stood across the street, half hidden beneath the flickering street lamp. My pulse quickened. Naomi was still inside the hospital, getting her wound cleaned. Layla sat in the passenger seat, clutching my arm. "Mama," she whispered, "is it over?" I didn't answer, because deep down, I already knew it wasn't. The figure turned and disappeared down the alley. I waited until my breath steadied, then pulled out my phone and opened the message again. "You shouldn't have opened the roots. We're not done yet." Whoever sent it wasn't bluffing. Bryce might be dead or running, but his network was alive. Inside the hospital, Naomi sat on the edge of the bed while a nurse bandaged her arm. She looked pale but alert. "You saw someone?" she asked when I told her. "Yes, watching." She nodded slowly. "That means Bryce failed. They'll send someone else." I sank into the chair beside her. "We released the ledger last night. Every file is with the reporters. What else could they possibly want?" Naomi stared at the floor. "Control, Amina. People like them don't care about exposure. They care about silence." Layla fidgeted beside me. "Then what do we do now?" Naomi exhaled, closing her eyes for a second. "Now we make sure the truth can't be erased again." We left the hospital at dawn. The sky over Dakar glowed silver pink, the sea breeze carrying the smell of salt and smoke from the docks. Naomi insisted on driving, one hand on the wheel, the other pressed to her bandage. I watched the city waking up around us, market vendors setting up stalls, kids in uniforms chasing buses. Ordinary life, untouched by the chaos we'd just survived. "Where are we going?" Layla asked. "To meet someone who still owes Malik a favor," Naomi said. Her voice carried that old fire, the one she used to have when she worked undercover for the company before it turned corrupt. I trusted her now, but part of me wondered how deep her connections still went. We turned into a narrow street lined with crumbling colonial houses. Naomi parked in front of a blue-painted cafe with a sign that read La Phoenix. Inside, a man sat alone at a corner table, bald, heavy-set, eyes hidden behind tinted glasses. Naomi greeted him in Wolof. He rose, hugged him once, then turned to me. "You must be Amina Karim. Name's David Mensah. I worked with Malik before things went bad." He slid a sealed envelope across the table. "Malik told me to give you this if the ledger ever surfaced." I hesitated. My fingers brushed the paper. "He planned everything." David smiled faintly. "He knew how deep the roots went. He also knew you'd be the only one brave enough to dig them out." I opened the envelope. Inside was a single USB drive and a handwritten note. "If the ledger reaches the world, they'll come for what's buried beneath. Don't let them burn it. The final proof lies under the old bridge. Follow the blue mark. I felt my stomach twist. That bridge, the one where Malik fell? Layla gripped my hand. Mama, no, you can't go back there. But I had to. For Malik. For every life their corruption had crushed. Naomi saw the determination in my face and sighed. Then we finish it. Together. The bridge looked different in daylight. Less like a grave, more like a scar that refused to fade. The water below glimmered with shards of light. I parked near the guardrail, where the concrete had cracked years ago. Blue mark, I murmured. But where? Naomi pointed. There, under the support beam. We climbed down carefully, Layla watching from above. Under the rusted beam, half buried in mud and weeds, was a waterproof metal box the size of a shoebox. I yanked it free and wiped off the grime. Inside, hard drives, memory cards, and documents sealed in plastic. Evidence. More than the ledger ever held. Videos, contracts, bank logs, photos of politicians with Elias Reed and Calvin Bryce. Naomi whistled low. This could bring down half the city council. Before I could reply, a sound split the silence. A car door slamming above us. Layla screamed, "Mama, run!" Bullets ripped through the air. Naomi pushed me behind the pillar, returning fire. Go, Amina, take it. I grabbed the box and scrambled up the embankment. Two men in dark coats were closing in, guns raised. One shouted, "Give it here and no one else dies." Layla darted from behind the car, hurling a stone at him. It hit his shoulder just enough to make him flinch. I slammed the trunk shut, tossing the box inside, and hit the ignition. Naomi fired again, covering us as we sped off. The men jumped into their SUV, following close. Tires screeched, horns blared. My heart pounded so hard I could taste metal. "Seatbelt," I yelled. Layla clicked hers just as a shot shattered the rear window. Glass sprayed across the seat. I swerved onto a side road, then another, racing toward the crowded market district. The pursuers hesitated. Too many witnesses. They turned off, vanishing into the traffic. I pulled over, shaking. Layla sobbed quietly. Naomi's lips were pale. "We have to get her to a doctor," I said. Naomi managed a faint smile. "Later. First, you upload everything. There's an internet cafe 2 blocks down. Do it before they trace us." Her voice was fading, but her will was iron. I carried the box inside the small shop, connected the drive, and opened the folder. Files loaded. Years of corruption laid bare. I hit upload to the journalist's encrypted cloud. Progress bar, 10%, 40%, 80%. Then the screen flashed. Upload complete. I whispered, "It's done." Outside, sirens wailed. An hour later, the first headlines appeared online. Reed Foundation scandal. Evidence links politicians to offshore fraud. The city erupted. The truth had finally clawed its way into the light. Naomi was stable when the ambulance arrived. Before they took her inside, she squeezed my hand. "Malik's work is finished. Promise me you'll rest." I nodded, tears blurring everything. That night, Layla and I watched the news together. Faces that once seemed untouchable, now plastered across screens and handcuffs. Reporters called Malik a whistleblower, a hero. I looked out the window toward the sea. The horizon glowed faintly, storm clouds breaking apart. For the first time in years, I felt Malik near, not as a ghost, but as peace. Layla rested her head on my shoulder. "We're safe now, right?" I kissed her forehead. "For now, but the roots go deep, baby, and someone will always try to plant new ones." She smiled sleepily.
Then we'll keep digging them out." I laughed softly. Yes, we will. The city lights shimmered below us, alive and restless. Justice had cost us everything, but it was finally done. Or so I thought. 3 days later, a brown envelope arrived at my doorstep. No name, no return address. Inside was a single photograph. Naomi, lying in a hospital bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. Scrawled across the bottom in red ink, "You exposed the roots. Now we cut the branches." And beneath it, a fresh address. Warehouse 22. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of the story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.